Hi everyone. Hi, thank you all for joining us. So hi everyone, thanks for joining today's webinar. I'm Eve Oxbury, I'm Head of Editorial for Professional Beauty. And today we're live on both Professional Beauty and Hairdressers Journal International Facebook channels. And that's because we're covering a topic that's definitely relevant to both sides of the market at the moment, probably everybody at the moment, and that is budgeting during an unpredictable time. So we're going to be looking at how to navigate your salon finances this year. And I'm joined today by Valerie Delforge. Hi, Valerie.
Hello, good morning, everybody. It's really, thank you so much for having me. Really delighted to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, although I always say it's always my favorite subject, but budget is very much the heart of everything.
Absolutely, yeah, and certainly on everyone's minds right now. So Valerie, as many of you know, is a business consultant for the salon and spa sector and has also previously run salon and spa operations for groups including Steiner and Bliss, so really knows her stuff. So if you've got any questions as we go along, Valerie's going to do a presentation. If you have any questions, if you're watching in Zoom, just click on the little Q&A box you can see at the bottom of your screen and ask any questions you have. If you're watching over on either of the Facebook pages, then just type any questions in the comments and we will get to them at the end. So for now, I am going to hand over to Valerie and I'll pop back in at the end for questions. Thank you, Valerie.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm going to share my screen. It's always a little bit of a, is this going to work? But it should be okay. Here we go. So I won't see the questions whilst I'm sharing my screen or do the presentation. And as Eve mentioned, we will do this, answer all the questions you have at the end, obviously, of the presentation. And I know I'm talking a lot, so I'm going to make sure we wrap it up within the next half an hour and have enough time for you to discuss everything you want to discuss on budget. So obviously, when it comes to budget, I guess my background is working, like Eve said, with very big corporates and big spas, big operations. So I had to work with the financial departments on all of these companies for a long time. So analyzing a budget, understanding where my areas of growth are, understanding where it is that I'm spending too much money, really forecasting for the following year with the accountants to make sure that we were on par with everything. So I need to stress that I'm not an accountant. However, I have dealt with budgets all of my career, and that includes being a consultant for the past 7 years, working with all of my clients on budget, creating forecasts on what we want to achieve year on year. So I thought that we have kind of varied audience today. We might have hairdressers, we might have beauty salons, we might have international. So let me go back to the beginning. Let me go really understanding what a budget is and understanding what a budget does for you. So a budget is defined as a financial plan for a predefined period, usually of 1 year. So we're forecasting and we're really looking at what happens, what do we want to happen next year? So for example, if your accountant gives you your spending for last year, which was, let's say, £200,000, next year we want you to increase your growth by 10%. So next year is going to be £210,000. Where is that 10% going to? Do you want to get an extra receptionist? Do you want to get more stock in? Do you want to get perhaps a little bit more of an assistant working with you? So we really understand where are we putting that money, that extra 10%. So really important to analyze and define the budget as we go along, but definitely the forecast. A budget is going to allow you to understand your business inside out, forecasting the costs, what can you afford to spend on next year and what can't you afford to spend on, and also your revenue. Hopefully, we will see a growth, but we will talk about the situation as it is now. But on year, usually we're forecasting the cost and forecasting what we could potentially achieve. We understand what you are achieving. We understand what is costing you. Perhaps you're spending too much money in a certain areas. Perhaps you are overstaffed. Perhaps you have too much stock. We understand how you operate. So when I see a budget, I see how you operate. I see how your mindset works. I see perhaps you don't want to have too much kind of cost on let's say, training, because you believe that that's not going to be the focus next year. You've got an established team. Perhaps you want to focus on marketing more. So we understand the pattern. There's a pattern in your spending. And a lot of time when I work with clients, we look at the pattern being a bit of an emotional pattern. You know, I wanted this brand, I got it. I wanted this stock, I got it. So we really get to know when there's a budget, really defined budget, to understand when can you invest. We understand the investment that you can make. A must, however, when it comes to budgeting, is we should review it monthly. We should look at the figures, and that's what I do with my clients. Every single beginning of the month, we review what happened last month. How much did we spend on what? Was it part of the budget, or has something occurred that suddenly you had to spend more money on something? So we review that monthly budget. We analyze the income. Where is it coming from? How is the performance of the staff? We follow the spending. Very, very important to follow that spending. As I said, perhaps you had something to spend on the boiler or something that needed attention. So what can we do this next month to make sure you don't spend too much and you reduce those costs? We forecast for the year ahead, which for me is very important, but also agreeing with your accountant on the figures. One of the key elements with accountants is very few will give you a budget. They will give you your end of the year. They will tell you how much you've spent. They will tell you how much you've got in income, and they will tell you you've got X amount of profit, or perhaps you didn't have profits last year. So when you look at the X amount of profit, let's say £30,000 worth of profit, suddenly you're thinking, I can't see it in my bank account. Where is it gone? That's because they don't necessarily analyze the cash flow. They don't give you a budget exactly what you can spend for the following year. Very few do it. So it becomes a little bit difficult, and a lot of clients that I meet basically knows that they supposedly have some money coming in, or they have some profit, but actually can't see it in their bank account. So we analyze that. We're forecasting for the year ahead. We're really dividing every single areas of expenditure. We revisit the suppliers. We're aware of the hidden costs, for example, your treatment costs, for example, the towels, for example, anything to do that's going to give you an extra, the PPE at the moment. So all the hidden costs are really analyzed and understood. And we analyze your return on investment, which I feel we don't necessarily do automatically. So if you're investing in a new machine, for example, obviously the supplier will tell you, you can have that much money within the year, but have we actually made a return on investment on everything that we've done? Even if it's a staff member, are they profitable for you? So all of that is an analysis that should be done monthly, and definitely quarterly, and definitely yearly. So it's something that's underlined. For me, a budget is the heart of your business. Before I do even everything, I create a budget with my clients, because then I can really understand how they function. You're all different. You all have different priorities, but it gives me a clear idea of where you're at the business and how can we move forward for the following year. So I'll give you a few examples. But most of all, as far as I'm concerned, a budget is a mindset, is your mindset. Do you feel a little bit deflated? Do you feel a little bit on top of things? Do you feel like the cash flow is not coming in and it's really tight, and you go home and you feel really just everything is an expenditure and nothing's coming in enough? You know, it's a mindset. The budget is a mindset. Are you taking calculated risk, or are you making emotional decisions constantly? And that's where really I'm calming my clients down and like, okay, every decision is going to be a financial decision. It's going to be a decision that will allow you to make sure that you have a return on investment. You know, for me, a budget would be that you need to take the emotions out, because you look at your business, as a working venture, not that your heart and soul into it, which is difficult when you've created your baby, you've created something amazing that is for yourself. So I like to really take that emotion out of the financial element, because once you look at the business as a working business, you will find that your way of thinking about the budget will be very, very pragmatic, more systematic rather than, emotional. There are no right and wrong in the budget. If you decide to spend a lot of, 10% of your budget on education, that's what you decide to do. Some clients, for example, decide to pay themselves a high salary and have less profit. That's fine as well. Everything is fine as long as it's calculated and as long as we've taken that risk that is making sense for what comes out of your money. And to me, it's a vision for the future. So that vision that you have, whatever you want to build, how you want to build it, comes out of the budget. So when I do a pre-opening, for example, for a new business, a new salon or a new group, etc., it's all about the budget. How much can we afford to spend on what? How many minimum skeleton staff can we have to make it work? How can I cover my costs to achieve that vision for the future? And the problem at the moment is obviously that vision is a little bit blurry, so the budget becomes a little bit of a stress. So very, very important to focus on understanding what your expenses are. The budget, as far as I'm concerned, comes in 3 expenses. You've got your staff cost, which is the highest cost within your business. You've got your fixed costs, which are things that perhaps we can't do too much about, but there are elements of the fixed costs that we can look into. For example, the insurances, for example, looking at the business rates at the moment. So there are things that we can do with the fixed costs. And then you've got your variable cost, and the variable cost includes your stock expenses. It could also include anything to do with your marketing. So that's your variable. So how do we, that could fluctuate from month on month, basically. There are 3 budgets within those expenses that we really need to focus on. And in particular at the moment, number 1 is the staff profitability. How profitable your staff is to what you want them to be. So that profitability, which since the virus has been a little bit up and down, isn't it? We don't quite know how to look for that profitability. What should they be doing, especially if we're not sure about how many clients come through the door. The second budget to look for, and I am obsessed with that, and all my clients will tell you, is stock control, because I know with a strong stock control, I can and I'm able to reduce my costs dramatically. So to me, it's a budget that I really, really focus on. And the third one is the marketing, because somehow we do spend money on marketing, and marketing is bringing the buzz into the business. And if we have a budget purely for marketing, it allows us to be able to grow and bring in that machine, that old machine, to make sure that we've got the buzz into the business. So they're the 3 budgets that I really focus on, and I need to, once we create the budget sheet, I'm aware of what we can and can't do on those 3 budgets. So let's look at those a little bit as an audit, just to give you an example of my thought process when I look at a budget and those 3 key budgets. So the staff costs. Staff costs within salons is about 35%. Now, the hairdressing salon will argue that it can go down to 25%. Absolutely. From hair to beauty, you have very different expenses, and it's far more costly. And this is why when I work with hairdressers clients who have got beauty, they're a little bit unaware and a bit shocked at the expenses that we have in beauty. It costs far more to have to do a treatments, for example, and much longer. We can't generate as much money than you can do on the shop floor with hair. So up to 35% within salons. In spas, it can go up to 50%. And obviously all this includes NI and pension. When we look at the staff cost, however, I look at also the room or the chair occupancy. For a room to start being profitable and for me to be able to hire somebody, I want that room to be at least 60% occupied. Otherwise, there's no point hiring. It's going to increase my cost on HR, and I will actually not be what can I do with that room? And that we look at that on a year-to-year basis. Perhaps we should rent that room out because it's not generating enough money. Perhaps we should be looking at making sure that that room becomes something more practical. or another investment on something else if we can. With a chair occupancy, for it to start being profitable, it's about 40% occupancy. Now, a lot of softwares will not give you that number. It's not very practical for them to create that number. But you can look at it yourself with, for example, on 10 hours opening, how many hours is that room or that chair full or used? That's the occupancy of that. Alongside of the room occupancy or the chair occupancy, we then look at the staff performance, which is 80% for occupancy rate, which is the ideal number. 80% occupancy rate for the staff. I would like them to have 20% retail rate, and that it can be a little bit rare, but that's why we do here at the Delforge Group all of this energy on retail culture. And ideally, we want them to cover 3.5 times their salary to cover the costs and the overheads. However, this all depends on the treatments that you are generating. And it all depends on the time you're giving that staff to generate those clients. For example, if you do a manicure at £30 for 45 minutes, you're losing out and your staff will not be able to do 3.5 times their salary. So it's all about calculating, really calculating in fine-tooth comb exactly what goes on with the staff performance. We then have stock control, and I'm obsessed with stock control because through the lockdown in particular, I was talking to a lot of people that were kind of looking at this stock a little bit more in fine-tooth comb. And for me, the stock control needs to be between 8 to 12% of your total cost, no more than that. So if you have £200,000 worth of cost, 12% will be on stock. So it's very little. It is feasible with hair, perhaps hair clients with brow bars or nail bars for it to be at 8% cost. When I talk about stock, I talk about professional, retail, and consumables. Consumables being all your towels, throwaway towels, not the actual towels, throwaway towels. It could be tissues, it could be cotton buds, that kind of thing. We do need to look at revisiting suppliers. When was the last time you did that? And for me, for your cash flow, and I can't insist enough on that, I would rather you did small, consistent orders because they are much better for the cash flow. So what I make my client do is, for example, you do the stock take on a Monday, and on a Monday night or Tuesday morning, you do an order, you'll then get your invoice and then you pay it, and that's it. That's like an old machine. It's constant. Small, consistent orders will allow you to not overspend on your stock, and it will allow you to make sure that you don't overspend over 12%. Obviously, this is all about the creation of securities and systems around the stock, in particular with hairdressers and the colors that you're using. That's where you're losing the most money. With beauty, it's all the overspending on nail colors, for example, or facial treatments sometimes that have duplication of products. So we really look at that, and we've created a stock control module that's available on the website if you felt that you needed to take that control again. Treatment audit. With treatment, I'm sure you all know, we're looking at £1 per minute. So it should be £60 or €60 or $60 for 60 minutes. As simple as that. However, if you can't do that because you're unable to suddenly put a treatment at £60 when it's been £40 for an hour, it's very difficult for your clients to see that. Revisit the minutes. So I was talking about the manicure, for example, £30 for 45 minutes. You are losing out. You're not on your pound per minute. So perhaps revisit the time and the protocols. Maybe do the manicure in half an hour for £30, and now you've got your pound per minute. And that's really, really important to look at that literally treatment by treatment and allocate that, look at the stock allocation for those treatments. Do you still have some stock sitting on your shelves that actually should be shifting for some of the treatments, or what can we do with that stock? So very important for the treatment audit. And the marketing as a budget that I'm focusing on, usually I'm looking at 5% of your total revenue. It's quite interesting for some of you to outsource it for consistency. We again review it quarterly because it allows us what do we want to happen the next quarter, how we're going to make happen the following 3 months. So for example, in October, I will be working on January, February, March marketing plan and understanding all of the expenses I have around that marketing plan. For example, if you create a launch, for me, let's say you're creating a launch of a new treatment, I would separate that launch from the budget. So any product I buy from that launch goes onto my marketing budget. If I ask the staff to do overtime, it goes onto my marketing budget. So it becomes a strong, healthy understanding whether that marketing activity has worked, that launch has worked, and how much have I spent realistically on that launch. And that's when I analyze my return on investment. So we're going to navigate through the C world because that's why you're here today. This was really a basic understanding of the budget. And for me, the budget is very much a mindset. And at the moment, all the clients that I'm meeting and people I'm talking to, there's a sense of loss. There's a sense of, I had my business up there and now I feel like I'm having to rebuild it all again. I'm used to generate, £10,000 a week. Now I'm only generating 5. So it's just that sense of loss. And a lot of you that I'm talking to, and this is where the problem occurs when it comes to budgeting, is we're stopping our growth. We're basically stopping the growth to go further because we're scared of the unknown. We're scared of what's going to happen. So the fear overtakes your thought process when it comes to budget. Time management is overwhelming. Everything falls back on you. I'm talking to people who say, well, I may as well go back because I don't want to invest in someone new, or I may as well go back and do a lot of treatment myself. And that's where it becomes very heavy. And we look at the budget and cash flow, feeling really down, feeling really stressed about that budget. So where it goes wrong, and this is why we need to start analyzing bit by bit your budget, is usually we have team members that are not profitable within a team. If you find that your cash flow and your budget is tight, that means some team members might not be profitable, and that's something you need to look at. Your fixed costs might not be revisited. When was the last time you looked for new insurance? When was the last time you looked for a new phone, etc.? So phone supplier, etc. The stock management a lot of time is non-existent, or it is, but it's not tight enough. So we're still overspending on stock. And I can give you some horror stories on stock where actually, if we did it properly, you would save so much more money. We guesstimate a little bit what's going on with the budget, and we wait for the yearly account. So the accountant gives you that end of the year, let's say in December, and is telling you you've spent that much money and you've made that much profit, but you can't see it in your account. So it's that guesstimation. A lot of people I meet actually don't really even analyze what the accountant gives them. There's no monthly review, there's no target given, and especially at the moment, why give a target? We don't know what's going to happen with the clients. So it's all very much a little bit blurry as far as I can see. And there's a huge mismanagement of cash flow. Now, we could be a very busy business, but your cash flow is non-existent. And unfortunately, that will bring you down dramatically. So cash flow is all about the management of what comes in and what goes out. If everything was coming out on the 31st and coming in on the 1st, it will be a lot easier. We'll know how much money we've got left for the month. But unfortunately, it's managing that cash flow that becomes perhaps a little bit difficult and a heartache. So there's a disparity between reality and profit. As I said, your accountant might tell you you're in profit, but you can't see it in your bank account. You've got sporadic monitoring as and when you've got time. We don't really study the cash flow. We kind of know we've got enough perhaps to spend to pay for the VAT, but we've not put that money aside, so we're not quite sure. And it becomes, that's what I mean by mindset. It becomes very heavy on the mind because we constantly worry about the next step, the next VAT bill. We're paying the bills as and when we can, rather than have a regular, which is what I try to do with the stock. Every Monday or Tuesday, we pay that bill, is done, and we know it's done for the week. And it all creates a sense of lack. You know, when the cash flow is tight and when we really worry about that next bill, it's that sense of lacking money, lacking clients, and that mindset generates a huge impact on your leadership. So that's why it's so important, as far as I'm concerned, to look at the areas of growth. And I'm looking at the time because I want to be on time for you. I know I talk a lot, but please do ask me any questions at the end. Obviously, a lot of you have reopened with a new treatment menu. You've looked at your yearly price increase. Some of you haven't increased the prices, but perhaps it's time to look at the price increase, even if it's not for now, even if it's for January, to make sure that you're not losing because all the suppliers might have put their prices up. Staff rota and opening hours has been reviewed. I feel sometimes, and when I talk to a lot of clients or new clients, I feel sometimes it's a little bit shy on the staff rota and opening hours. We kind of feel, well, the team might not want to, but I really feel now it's a little bit like a buyer's market, isn't it? It is a salon owner's market. You have got the opportunity, and this is why when we start looking at opportunities rather than feeling very heavy with the cash flow and the budget, to do what you need to do. So I've got a client who's opening at 8 o'clock in the morning with having 2 teams, team A in the morning, team in the afternoon, and it works really well. And she's realizing a lot of people want that morning appointment. So don't be afraid of really looking at the opening hours and the staff rota, in particular with what's going on at the moment in the UK anyway, with the end of the furlough at the end of October. The retail culture for me is very important. If anyone knows me, I love retail. I'm obsessed with retail. I know it's going to be an extra revenue that is easy. And we have done with my trainer, Terry, a few mystery shops since the opening. And we've been quite shocked how little we've been talked about retail. It wasn't before the lockdown anyway, but now it's literally non-existent. And the customer journey becomes sometimes a little bit cold. So therefore, we're not pushing the retail at all. An area of growth as well is your treatment costs. For sure, they need to be revisited and viewed in a fine-tooth comb, really one by one. The loyalty scheme, I feel that at the moment, again, when we went to do those mystery shop, no one really tried to either rebook us or getting us involved in the loyalty scheme. And yet, at the moment, with everything that goes on, keeping that customer loyal should be your only priority and your reception or your therapist or your hairdresser's priority. We want to engage that client to come back again and again to you. Your time management is crucial. I meet so many people that are scared for the future that they keep telling me, oh, I'm going to go back. Oh, I'll open my column again. Why? Why are we doing that? Because that is going to be detrimental to you in the long run. Remember what you've built up to now. That sense of loss, of course, is so difficult to kind of overcome sometimes, but it doesn't mean you need to go back to what it was. It means that perhaps you need to adjust the budget so it works for you, not against you. And that's an analysis of the figures for sure that allows you to understand that your time will be well spent in doing everything on the business rather than in the business. You know, your marketing and your training elements still needs to happen. And unfortunately, in terms of crisis or in times of crisis, a lot of people stop the marketing because maybe they can't afford it. They haven't got time because they're doing all the treatments. Training is cut down left, right, and center. And I always feel that actually, if we're going to invest in something, marketing and training should be even more in the upfront of your budget. And your vision should be revisited, because what I'm finding at the moment, talking to a lot of people, we've got the second spike, we feel very, very blurry with where we're going. But let's take that magic one. Where do you want to go in 5 years? How are we going to achieve that dream in 5 years or 2 years or 3 years? Just to give you that lease of life. I was talking to someone this morning who was telling me I'm still going to invest in this machine because I still believe it's going to answer my clients' results, what they want, etc. And good, as long as it's counted for, as long as we've got the budget for the marketing and training, as long as we know what we're spending and we're going to calculate the return on investment, why not? Why not? But it's all going to be down to your vision. So the do's and the don'ts. The do's is very much creating a monthly cost spreadsheet. That is so important. That's going to allow you to understand what happens. And it's like what I call the live budget, where it's more or less your cash flow, where you're understanding what comes in next month, what comes out next month, what can we forecast in terms of treatment. Increase your HR expenses if needed. You know, I'm talking to a lot of people, I'm going to cut, I'm too scared. But actually, when you look at the figures, your occupancy is high. Your occupancy is on 80 to 90%. Why should we decrease the HR expenses? Make sure you've got valid contracts. Make sure you look at the contracts that are valid for you. Maybe it's only a 6-hour contract. Maybe it's only a Saturday. You are in charge. It is a salon owner's dream at the moment, because you can really focus on what you want rather than feeling dictated by everything. You are in charge and in control. So don't be afraid, as long as if it's done again on an emotional element, that's where the stress comes in. Everything to me has to be black and white, figures, analyzed. And if we take out the emotion out, every decision becomes a financial decision, which will be so much better for both your mindset and also the future of your business. You know, reflect on what you want to achieve. It goes back to your vision. Minimize the hours and the days if you have to, by person, by staff member, if you have to. And look at the small, tiny changes that will make a big difference in the long run. When I'm saying to my client, look, you've spent 15% on stock, I want you to reduce it next month by 5%, so we're back on track, you know, and maybe it's only £200-300 that they've overspent. But actually that £200-300, if you multiply that by 12 months, it ends up being a lot of money. So we've got to look at all those small changes that make a huge difference in the long run. And at the moment, all I keep saying is ride this wave. We're going to ride this wave to come out on the other side with a much stronger budget, much stronger mindset around the figures, and really focus on what you can achieve if you've got that passion back into achieving that for your business. The don't is don't stop your growth. Be very careful of that scare factor. But if I don't, etc. Be very careful of that. Don't keep the flossy. If anyone knows me, you will know that flossy is your difficult staff member, the one that's not really performing, or perhaps they are high performers. Usually they're ones that are a little bit difficult, but give you a bit of a bad taste in the morning until she comes and have a coffee. She doesn't talk to anyone. You know, I'm not having any of that. We have been flossing the flosses out of the businesses I'm looking after, because enough is enough. It's your turn to have the business that you want. You don't have time to think of all the emotional. Obviously, we need to do it properly and in an HR point of view. Don't avoid the number crunching. It's really important that you understand your figures inside out. Don't assume anything, everything. You know, I remember when I was doing a marketing activity, came to the salon and said, okay, so have we done with that marketing? It was a gift. Oh my God, it was good. It was good. Buy two, get a gift. It was so good. Went downstairs, had a look at the computer, and actually there was 2 people that bought it, but it was the receptionist that had served them. So she was telling me it was amazing and busy, but actually black and white figures told me otherwise. And don't stop analyzing. Analyzing is great. It makes you feel on top of your business. It makes you far less emotional. Woo, I can't believe it. I'm getting better and better. It's half an hour, 30 minutes. We do have a stock control course available at the delforgegroup.co.uk. We also have express modules available for the budget as well, that really goes in fine details about how to calculate your budget. And I'm offering everybody that wants to have a little chat with me, a 30 minutes free consultation. You simply have to get in touch with us, have a look on the delforgegroup.co.uk, and you can send us a little message. So Eve, I've done quite well, I think, in half an hour.
You have. Thank you, Valerie. That was fantastic. It was a great overview of budgeting, but also some of the really kind of difficult things that I think people are thinking about at the moment. So thank you. That was fab.
Thank you so much. So have we got any? I can see a few things on the chat.
Yeah, we've had a lovely comment just pop up. Fabulous as always, Valerie, so that's lovely. But yeah, we've had a couple of questions through. One thing that you touched on very briefly was the end of furlough, and I think this is something that people are quite concerned about at the moment, a bit nervous about it coming to an end completely. What steps should people be taking now to prepare for that, or if there is anything that they should have done that they might not have thought of?
It goes back to analyzing the performance of your staff and go back to analyzing your opening hours. Really, really important. Are your opening hours still valid? Is your staff performing on the hours that you've given them? FlexiFurlough has really helped a lot of businesses. It's been great because it's been more flexible. It's been a little bit more easy to handle in some respect, depending on the accountant. I have to say some accountants were a bit more rigid. But it's been a lot easier to kind of decide on a day-to-day, on a week-to-week basis, what can you afford and what can't you, and how busy are you if you were. So this particular end of October, we're going to have, it's fairly similar, but it's a little bit more rigid. It's not so flexible. So you're going to have to really analyze definitely the staff performance and for sure the occupancy of the rooms or your chairs. But please, please look at your opening hours. You'll be surprised that perhaps something that you've been wanting to do for a long time, I don't know, opening Sundays or opening earlier, opening later, might be time perhaps for October to look into it to see if there is a demand.
Absolutely. Fab, thank you. Another question that's just popped up is, can you talk about someone who wants to work from home? So how can they be more motivated and gain profit?
Okay, so from home, what do we mean? Is that someone who's having clients at home?
Yeah, I think a freelance therapist or hairstylist who wants to see their clients at home.
Yes. That's motivation. Obviously, that's going back down to the vision. What are you visioning yourself to do? What is it that you want to do by the end of next year? It doesn't have to be a 5-year plan. It's just, what do you want by the end of next year? So motivation is always kind of leadership. And I think I'm finding it amazing sometimes. Maybe I need to do something for leaders when you're on your own, because you're still a leader. I believe we're all leaders. You're a leader of your life, leader of your professional life, your personal life. So therefore, it goes back to your mindset and what you want to achieve. In terms of the clients at home, it goes back to the budget. How many clients can you afford to have? How many is that a day? Do you want to have open every single day, or do you want to be, starting at 8 o'clock in the morning and finish earlier? A lot of time when we are on our own, we let all of the client dictate to us when they want you. But actually, you will find that if you're marketing and you're very strong at your budget and you understand what goes out and what goes in, you're the one dictating your diary, and people will come to you anyway. The problem when you're on your own, we tend to say yes to everything because we're scared that someone might not want you. But that is the wrong mindset in the long run, because you'll end up creating a business that runs around them rather than it run around you. And God knows when you're going to have a free weekend again. So it's really important to go back to the budget. How much is all the costs? How many clients do you want? Can you have a week? What all opening hours do you want to create? Create it like a business. It doesn't matter if you're at home or not. What is it that you want? How do you want to make it? And if someone really wants you, they will find that time. I hope that answered.
Yeah, I think so. That's fab. Another question we've had is, where can I look to cut costs? So I think you mentioned a lot of people initially look at cutting marketing or training, and that's probably not the best place to start. So if people really do need to start cutting costs, what are the areas that they can be looking at, or where should they think to begin?
Stock. Number one, because I guarantee you, if you do your calculation of stock, you're probably overspending. Very few are not overspending. If you're very good at stock, and maybe I'm wrong, and I like to be proven wrong because that means you're on top of things. So, it's good. It's good if you're on top of your thing. Then it's looking at your staff. Are they all occupied? Are they all definitely, are they all really profitable? Perhaps it's looking at your reception. Unfortunately, at the moment are suffering a little bit. Your reception, if you have receptionists, do you need all the hours covered? But again, I'm really wary about doing that and doing that panic decision without looking at the budget, because next thing you know, you're the one having to do reception on the days you really didn't want to. So be very aware of that. But yeah, for me, it's all the stock. Marketing training for me is important to have something going on, but maybe you have someone that is doing your social media. Let's say she's costing you £400 a day. Oh, they, no, I'll do so.
She's expensive.
Maybe she's costing you £400 a month. You know, is there someone in that can help you that's a little bit cheaper, or can you take that over, or the receptionist take that over? So I would really look at those elements of, you know, practicality, but also, you know, in the long run. Don't forget the long run. I feel at the moment we're very short-sighted. That's why we forget, you know, that scare factor, like very short-sighted. Let's just don't forget. All it is at the moment is riding that wave, covering your costs so you can ride that wave. And that's all I keep telling my clients. Look, at the moment we're covering the costs, we're riding the wave. Think of next year, what we're going to do next year, how we're going to, and having that mindset creates much more a relaxed view on your figures and your cash flow. And it's amazing how the mindset affects the cash flow.
Yeah, that's great advice, because I think at the moment, particularly, people are scared to make changes, aren't they? Because things seem to be changing on a daily basis. So you don't want to make any kind of big decision that might not be the right thing a few months down the line.
100%. But, you know, like anything, is there a wrong or right thing? You might have made a decision 2 years ago of buying a machine, let's say, but actually it's gathering dust because the marketing wasn't strong enough behind it. So there's always decisions that we make on a yearly basis, regardless of the virus or not, that might not be the right thing in the long run. But what is important at the moment is to make sure that the business cover the costs, get a little bit of cash flow on the back of it, and making sure that you are still thinking on your profitability in the long run. And I think at the moment we're so scared. You know, I was talking to someone yesterday. She said, "Oh, it's fine because I'm going to cover. You know, I'm going to go back and open my columns again." You want to? You haven't done that for 2 years. Do you really want to? Is that necessary? Is having someone for 12 hours going to cost you that much? If we start working on, you know, the customer journey, the customer loyalty. You know, when we did the mystery shop, I went to a hairdresser, which before it's a lot, it's kind of was a lot of money for my hair. I don't do it that often. It's a balayage, but you know, you come in, you have a head massage, you know, you choose the oil, next thing you know, you've got a champagne. Oh my God, it's so lovely. And then it cuts your hair. That money that I was spending, you know, was just, it had the value of making me feel amazing. And then I was, you know, kind of, you know, mentioned the shampoo I could have, etc. Going back after lockdown, none of that, obviously, because we can't do it. But on top of that, the price have increased. But on top of that, there's no retail that's been introduced to me. And on top of that, there's no customer loyalty. So where are we losing here? Are we losing because we've not thought of that customer journey in the long run, and we've been focused on PP and making the money so much, when actually what is the client looking for at the moment is that amazing experience still, despite the PPE.
Yeah.
Making those small changes, the small reviewing the customer journey will impact on your budget, because supposedly they're not spending money on oil for the head massage, they're not spending money on champagne for the champagne. So how can you make me feel super special? So I want to come back to you.
Absolutely. So kind of finding ways around these issues, I think that's it. And I think we've had another question about doing a similar thing, I suppose, for your team, because you mentioned it's a salon owners market at the moment, but on the other hand, salon owners want to hold on to good people in the long run in their team. So do you have any advice on kind of achieving that balance? You know, obviously you need to make tough decisions, you may need to change their hours, but how can you keep a team motivated during this difficult period of doing that?
Very hard. But I have found that we're dealing with less flosses, you know, the difficult staff member. I have found a lot of team are very, very supportive of the employers. I think a lot of team, and that needs to be said, I think they've been very flexible since the closure, you know, since we closed. There was a lot of things during lockdown. Oh, they're sitting down, they're getting paid. I didn't always agree with that. I feel that there was an element of sort of them maybe not feeling comfortable with what was going on and wanting to help. So since we've opened, you know, most of the teams I'm dealing with, there's no issue. They're very flexible. If we need to cut hours, we will, whatever it takes to survive. So I feel that unfortunately there are some difficult decisions to make. I was talking to someone last week where unfortunately she might have to lose a couple of very good team members, and that's where the heartache is, isn't it? That's very, very difficult. There's nothing wrong with them. But can we review everybody's, and it all depends, it goes back to the contracts that you've set. You know, can we review the hours so we reduce the hours for everybody and it's a team effort? Or is it that we have got to lose 2 members of staff? But it is the survival of the fittest at the moment, unfortunately. And, you know, it's riding the wave so you can come out on the other hand, so eventually you can reemploy them again. You know, that's kind of, for me, yes, it's hard, and there are decisions at the moment. Since 2020 has been very difficult on the mindset, but it's sometimes making the decision to step back to go forward again once we can.
Excellent. Thank you, Valerie. I think we're pretty much up to time, but thank you so much. That's been really, really interesting. I think some great information for whatever kind of business you run. I know we've got hair salon owners and beauty salon owners watching, so thank you. That's a fantastic advice.
It's a little snippet of how I think about budget. Don't hesitate to send us questions if you have as well in between, because I know people will look on replay, but don't hesitate. This is just a little thought process about budget, but a lot of time talk to your accountant, ask them to create a budget for the following year. Sometimes that does work and that does help you. Or get in touch. I'd be happy to review your budget and look into it a little bit with you to understand where you're perhaps overspending and what you should be looking at.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Valerie Delforge, for joining us. And we've got plenty more webinars coming up, both on professional beauty and Hairdressers Journal International. So check out our websites for the lineup for those. And we'll see you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. See you soon.